and to bring you your fix of everything related to the Montreal Canadiens. Two men who could seriously use an intervention. Your source of Habs talk, right from the rock. Right from the rock.
Hello, Canada, hockey fans, United States and Newfoundland.
Hockey Junkie and GK.
Okay, guys, welcome to Season 2, Episode number 15 of the Fix Podcast. My name is Matt, also known as Hockey Junkie, and joining me today is Gary. Stranger danger, Gary. Not gonna lie, I'm a little scared, Gary. It's been a long time. What's going on?
It has been a long time, man. You went on a little vacation, and we had some sickness, and now here we are, and coming together just in time to see the Leafs get eliminated from the playoffs, hopefully.
It's gonna be beautiful, isn't it? Huh?
It's going to be beautiful. It is going to be beautiful.
Do you want to start just... Let's just talk about the Leafs starting off. We'll work our way into the Habs. We got to get this Leafs stuff out of the way, man, because it's crazy what's going on in Toronto right now.
It's a big story.
It is. It's huge.
It is.
Do you think they're going to get put out tomorrow night? Start first up. Like, do you think this is it?
You know what? I do. I think that they're going back to Boston. Boston's got all the momentum. Do you see Brad Marchand going across in front of the Leafs bench when the game was over the other night going, "You're done in 5" with 5 fingers up? Like, he's just in their heads. He's in their heads. Matthews is not feeling 100%. You're hard pressed to say that Marner's feeling 100%. That high ankle sprain is still... doesn't have him playing to his full capacity. And even when he was at his full capacity in years past, the playoffs haven't been his bread and butter. And then you got Nylander just coming back off of a mystery injury. Maybe it was concussion. Maybe he was just having, migraines. Who knows? Maybe his hair got in his eyes. It's all possible with the Leafs. But he's just coming back, so he's not feeling 100% either. So, those are 3 of your main guys. Tavares, he's on the downward side of his contract, downward side of his career, and the back end is abysmal and not getting any goaltending. So unless Wall comes in, man, and just stands on his head, to me, Game 5 is going to be a tough one for the Leafs.
I think they're done in 5 too, man. There's no way. Like, the only way the Leafs would come back and win this series, being down 3-1, is if they were playing against the Leafs. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only way it's evident. That's the only way they're battling back. And unfortunately for them, they are the Leafs. So, and
nobody
Gary,
else is like that.
No. And Brad Marchand, man, like you were saying, he's in everybody's head. He's the rat. He's the ultimate rat. As Habs fans, like, we watch him and we get annoyed watching him play sometimes. But, man, watching him play against the Leafs is like...
Yeah, him and Matthew Tkachuk is the same thing. Like, when they're playing against you, it sucks. When they're playing against Leafs and you can get to cheer from, you can really kind of appreciate just how infuriating they are and how glorious it is to watch, man. It's awesome.
Oh, he's the ultimate rat. And, like, I don't know if you ever looked at his numbers in the playoffs are just insane, man. Like, he takes his game to a whole new level in the postseason, and the Leafs stars don't. Like, that's the moral of the story. That's what's going on here. They're getting outworked, outperformed. Like, that's his kind of hockey. Brad Marchand hockey right there in the playoffs. And the Leafs guys, they're shit, man. They can't do anything in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, there's just no supporting cast in Toronto either. So you got, and we've talked about this before. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast before, but I kind of take it at Toronto Maple Leafs is this. You got your core 4 and they're taking up a large chunk of your salary cap. You throw in a goalie in there who's making a reasonable amount of money, and that's a large part of your salary cap. So every year they go out in the off season and they pick up guys, just random guys to fill up their roster, try to fill out their roster as best they can. But they're signing them to 1-year contracts, to reclamation projects. They're guys who are maybe on the tail end of their career. Anyone they can get to come there to fill a role. Last year was Ryan O'Reilly. It was an excellent acquisition, I thought, going into the playoffs. But he's just coming in. He's just fresh, right? And this year, same thing. Half of those guys are gone. You're replacing 50% of your roster every year. And then you come into the trade deadline and you add another 5%. So, you get a bit more turnover, a bit more new guys into your roster. And then a couple of months later, or a month or so later, you go into the playoffs and these guys got to lay down their body for one another. They got to sacrifice each other. They got to give it all for one another. When they played Montreal there a couple of seasons ago in the playoffs, that Montreal team would have jumped in front of a bullet for each other. And they did. I mean, Shea Weber, Paul Byron, Carey Price ended their careers trying to get a Stanley Cup for the Montreal Canadiens. They just don't have that. They don't have it because they're not playing together. The only guys who've been through it together are Marner, Matthews, Tavares, and Riley. Everyone else is just, it's their first time at the show. It's their first time getting embarrassed. It's their first time having to deal with this stuff. So they don't have that passion. And it shows. They don't have any secondary scoring. They don't have any support. And the weight of the world is on those four guys. Because no one else's fault they haven't won for the last 4 or 5 years. It's their fault because they're the guys who've been there. So, I mean, it's a massive, massive amount of pressure, and they just don't rise to it. Brad Marchand does rise to it. They don't.
Yeah, exactly. And you were talking about Carey Price, Paul Byron, Shea Weber, what these guys went through during the playoffs in 2021. Man, like, when I really think about it, those guys laid it all out on the line. They damn near killed themselves, man, to try and bring a cup home. And now I'm watching, I hate to admit it, but I am watching the Leafs right now. I'm watching the Leafs and Bruins series because I find it the most entertaining series of all right now. And
absolutely.
But watching these guys, man, like, first it was Nylander. He doesn't play the first few games. Everybody's wondering what's going on. There was a lot of speculation. I noticed that. I noticed there's a rumor going around that he had headaches or migraines.
Yeah.
All right, that's and to me, like, when you look at the sacrifices that's been made over the years in the playoffs, guys that laid it all out on the line to get their team a Stanley Cup, and you got a guy that's not playing a few games because he's got a headache, man. Like, really? It doesn't sit well with me, man. Like, it just feels weird. And then Game 4, huge game. Austin Matthews is playing 2 periods of hockey. I mean, he wasn't necessarily making a difference, but he's their best player. He's their best goal scorer. There's no doubt about it. All of a sudden, he doesn't show up during the third period, and it's because he's sick, man. Like, they're saying he's got some kind of a mysterious illness. I don't know. No one really knows. But anyway, it blows my mind how he doesn't show up to play the third period. And his team needs him. Like, the series is on the line, man. They're going to go down. They lost their third game of the series, and he's not playing because he's sick. Like, like, put a bucket down. Like, shit in the bucket every time you get off the ice. Do something.
Slap it the pins on, bucket. Yeah, whatever you got to do.
Throw a diaper on.
Well, how much more respect would guys have for Austin Matthews if he had a birth bucket and was throwing up and come back on next shift? I mean, whether it's safe or whatever else, like, people plays with broken ribs, separated shoulders. None of that's safe. And maybe it's not smart. But at the end of the day, if he went out and played at 50% in that third period, or if the trainer had to sit him on the bench and say, listen, man, you're not going out on that ice anymore, how much more respect would everyone have for him right now? And there'd be a lot less questions about it. That's the other thing with, like, the Nylander situation, is that it was so misplayed by the Leafs management and the Leafs coaching staff in that it was such a distraction. Like, if the guy's having headaches, then come out and say he's having headaches. If he's got an injury, come out and say, you don't have to say he's got a concussion if that's what it is, and I don't know that that's what it is, but say he's got an upper body injury. When you say he's, it's personal and it's all this, it's all that, I mean, there's speculation that maybe it's something internal. Maybe it was, he didn't show up to a practice, or, maybe he's just benched for some other reason. All this speculation, all this noise, is all it costs is noise. There was no purpose to it whatsoever, and it was a huge distraction right from the beginning of the series. So it's one more instance where, you got a coach in Sheldon Keefe that is dropping the ball. Consistently drop the ball, consistently getting outmaneuvered, consistently getting outplayed by his counterpart on the other side, and then they don't even have to be psychological. Brad Marchand's out there praising the Leafs after game 1 and 2 just because he's just letting them burn themselves down. He's letting Keefe get on the on the television and complain about Brad Marchand, how he gets away with calls, and it's just drawing the wrong narratives all the time. He's just playing all the wrong chords consistently.
A lot of talk about Keefe now. Like, if the Leafs lose this series, I mean, he's at least him is going to be gone. He's going to be gone for sure, no?
I don't know how Sheldon Keefe came back this season.
No.
But to me, it was you're changing GMs, You know, you got all this change, just what, third, fourth years in a row. Even if you don't think it's his fault, how can you not look at it and say, maybe a fresh perspective, a fresh set of eyes, a fresh approach wouldn't hurt? You know, like...
I'd get a real dick in there too, man. Like
a Tortorella.
Like, oh yeah, like towards Daryl Sutter, someone that's not going to let him have ice cream, not going to let him have TV after the games. Like,
lots of tough love.
Oh yeah, that's what they need. I mean, and I see a guy too, like Mitch Marner, sitting on the bench. Did you notice that when they were fighting the other night?
Oh
like,
my God.
they're yapping at each other, those yin yangs. Anyways, Marner takes off his gloves and like fires it down on the floor. Like, man, show some of that emotion on the ice. Like, what are you doing it on the bench for? Like, if you're pissed off, your team's losing, go down and I know he went out and scored a goal after, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, just show the emotion on the ice. Don't show it on the bench like that. God.
Absolutely. And the Elanders there telling him stop crying about it. This isn't Juniors. That was the interpretation of his lip reading, man.
And it's ironic too, because like if he did miss 3 games for a headache and then he's come back telling the boys not to stop crying.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. You say, like, I had a Leaf fan say to me the other day, it's like, well, you know, you're not watching any playoff games. You got no one to cheer for. I was like, hell yes, I do. As long as the Leafs are in the playoffs, I got a team to cheer for. It's whoever's playing Toronto in the first round. Not in the second round, because they don't get there very often. And then, you know what? Once Boston moves on, I'll have someone else to cheer for. Whoever's playing Boston, because I only like those guys. I don't like that team any better. It's just, you know, we have to deal with the Leaf fan base in Newfoundland here a lot more than we have to deal with the Bruin fan base. You know, I got like 50 Leaf fans who are friends, really good friends, and not so many Bruins fans. And they're less vocal. And the media is less in your face about it too. So at the end of the day, that's why the Leafs are always going to be on the lowest rung on my shit list.
Yeah, same here, man. I got a funny story to tell you too. So I've been uploading videos on the series. I'm sure you've seen some of the game reviews. I
watch all your videos.
The game reviews on the Leafs and Bruins. The last video, I had the most comments that I've ever had on a video. There's almost 1,100 comments on this video. The game 4, Leafs and Bruins. But the funniest comment of all that got me laughing, somebody wrote and said, "It's fans like you. You're the reason why players don't want to play in Toronto."
Thank you.
Like, I couldn't resist. I took the bait and I was like, man, I hate the Leafs and I'm so happy that I'm a contributing factor.
Like, anyone who like has ever watched anything but that one video of you knows that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like that was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Yeah,
like, hands down. Yeah, like that was awesome. Like,
well, man,
I truly am the reason.
Obviously, like, we've had some hard years as Montreal Canadiens fans, and like, you know, your channel is one of the premier Habs channels on YouTube. I mean, you know, there's no doubt about that. But like, Leafs YouTube right now, man, is imploding.
Oh yeah.
It is. I watch your video and, you know, it's light and I mean, you hit all the key points, man. Like, you didn't go out there and rip the Leafs. I mean, the video was ripping the Leafs, but only because it was easy. It's low-hanging fruit. You're just calling it like it is, and it happens to be, you know, a scathing review of the Toronto Maple Leafs because that's what they need. Yeah. That's what they deserve. But, like, I'm watching Steve Dangle just lose his mind. A couple more guys out there just losing their minds, man. It's and I mean, obviously, well deserved. It's just it's like a car accident, man. You just can't look away.
I know it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun to watch as a Habs fan. Like,
it is.
Everybody thinks that, like, you know, Habs fans aren't excited right now. I'm hyped. I can't wait for the draft lottery. I can't wait for the draft. I can't wait to see what Kent Hughes does during the offseason. Like, I'm really excited about this offseason. Like, at the end of the day, we might see the Leafs win one more game after Montreal was done their season. Like, you know what I mean? That was it. That's all they did.
It's hard to be proud about that.
It is. Yeah, man. And they're going to be picking what? Like, late again. They're not getting a top 10 pick. There's a lot of reasons for us to be excited as Habs fans right now.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to expectations. You know, what are your expectations coming into a season? And I mean, you look back to our season, you know, preview videos or preview podcast, and it was like we expected to finish around 27th in the league. Where did we finish? 28th in the league or something like that. So, the team improved. The team was more entertaining. Key players took key steps forward. I mean, Nick Suzuki looks like a legit, top-line center in the NHL. Not a superstar center in the NHL, but a top-line center in the NHL. Uri Slavkovsky had a career year, puts up, 20 goals and 50 points, and it looks like he is developing into a legit top-line winger who's got size, and to me seems like a guy who would rise to the occasion in playoff situations. What else we see? Cole Caulfield, takes a little bit step backwards from where we thought he was going to be goal scoring wise, but his game rounds out. He becomes more of a playmaker. He becomes less of a defensive liability. That whole line becomes less of a defensive liability. And then at the end of the season, he starts to round back into form and shows that he still's got that goal scoring touch as well. So you kind of abate your fears in that regard. Your young defense looks really, really good, with the exception maybe of the injury to Arbor Jackeye. Everything's pretty positive on the back end. Then you bring in Lane Hudson, low MLU to end the season off. So you got all this excitement about these new guys that are coming in, adding new elements to a blue line that's already stacked with talent. And there's still more talent overseas in Adam Enstrom. There's talent in the AHL right now. It's just, and then on top of that, we got maybe a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft, a draft lottery excited about, a free agency to be excited about. There's, for a team that's third year in a row placing very poorly, there's a pile of things to be positive about moving forward. And this offseason, as we said before, is crucial. It's going to be a make or break offseason for Kenny Hughes. To me, this offseason and the upcoming offseason after next year are going to be the two moments in this franchise right now that define the next decade of Montreal Canadian hockey, the next decade of what we're cheering about, what we're talking about on this podcast. And I'm excited to see what happens.
100%, man. I'm looking at this upcoming draft, and this is probably going to be the last time the Canadiens are picking top 5. If they do pick top 5, because next season is not going to be like this season. I can guarantee it. Next season is going to be different. No, I'm not saying the Canadiens are making the playoffs next season, but I'm saying that they're going to be way more competitive. And watching these playoffs, man, even gets me excited just watching the playoffs this year, because I look at a guy like Uri Slavkovsky, how far he's come along this season for Montreal, and then I'm watching the bigger teams in the playoffs and how their big guys are playing. Uri Slavkovsky is going to be a beast when he gets in the playoffs, man. He's that kind of player. He doesn't have to be flashy to score goals. He's standing in front of the net. He's going to the dirty areas. He's tipping in. That last goal he scored was a deflection off of a Lane Hudson point shot. Just standing in front of the net. He looked like a brick wall in front of the goalie. No, the defenseman couldn't move, and he was just hanging out there, and that was it. That was where he was parked.
Absolutely.
The park brake was on. You're not moving him. It was awesome to see, and that's the kind of players that they're gonna show up in the playoffs, man. I got a good feeling about the future. When this core right now on the Habs, I mean, you look at Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, they've already gone further than Marner and Matthews, and
conference final under the belt.
Yeah, man, they already got experience. They already got experience, and they're getting better. They're getting better. They're becoming more complete players, and all the young prospects and picks and Logan Mailloux looked like a stud during that last game. Kind of shocked everybody.
He did, man. He did.
Man, it almost makes guys expendable that originally you never dreamed would be expendable, because there's just so many up and coming.
It's more than expendable. It's forced out of town because there's only so much room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you talk about playoff performers, and you look at Nick Suzuki, he's only had the one playoff run. But my goodness, it's hard to look at that playoff run and say that Nick Suzuki didn't elevate his game, that he didn't rise to the occasion, and then some. I mean, the guy scored massive goals. Him and Cole Caulfield scored massive goals. And if that was kind of a one and done, or there wasn't a precedent to that, you might look at that and say, well, that's a flash in the pan. But look back to his OHL days, and every time he was in a playoff run, he put teams on his back and carried them to championships all on his own. His game went from, a really good player to an elite player when it mattered the most. And that's your captain. So those are the guys that drag everybody into that. They set the tone. And if you got that guy setting that kind of tone, on a team that's getting more and more talent as you go and as you look at things, I mean, it is positive. The team needs more offense. It needs more offense, not from the back end. The puck moving is there. The elite offense talent from the back end is there. I mean, even this year we had the second most goals from our defensive core, second most points, from our defensive core in the league, behind the Colorado Avalanche, who have Cale Makar, maybe the best defenseman of our generation, on the blue line. So we finished second to those guys in generating points from our back end, and that's not including Lane Hudson and Logan Mailloux, who are the two most offensively gifted defensemen that we have in our system, without maybe the exception of Mike Matheson. But ceiling-wise, those guys, they will surpass him, or should surpass him if everything goes the way it's supposed to be. So it's just, the possibilities are endless, man. It's just a matter of these next moves are so critical, because you look at a team like Ottawa, look at a team like Buffalo, who have tried to make some moves, tried to make that transition from bottom feeder to rebuilder to transition into contender, or at least to make that transition into being more competitive. And I mean, Ottawa is the worst example of it of all. Traded away assets to get guys who were older. Yeah. To make them more competitive now, and it just didn't translate. And then you wasted those assets, and a lot of times you lose these guys for nothing at the end of the day. So you need to make sure you make the right moves. And I trust Kent Hughes to do that.
I do too, man. He's definitely the guy. Like, that's definitely a cautionary tale. The Buffalo Sabres, and especially the Ottawa Senators. My God, that was bad. That was
absolutely. And then you look at the New York Rangers, who are more of what you're looking for when you make that transition. Add pieces slowly. Keep it in the kind of, if you're going to add a piece, don't add a piece that's though still elite, older by quite a margin, who doesn't fit your core kind of timetable, to try to speed things up. Let them, even if you're going to bring in a guy like, in that case, Mika Zibanejad, who can grow with your group as well. Is maybe a young veteran, not an older veteran. And I think that's the type of player that Ken Hughes is going to target. And I mean, that's the kind of guys he has targeted to date. I just hope.
Look who's got his DNA. Look who's got his DNA all over that team, man.
Absolutely, right? You got Jeff Gordon over there. It's it's the same. And I mean, Gordon's fingerprints around the Boston Bruins too. I mean, they're a few decades or a few seasons removed now, but still he had a role in that as well. So I mean, it's
Gordon's DNA is everywhere, man. You can't illuminate one room, one bedroom without fun.
It's like a whorehouse in there. But you know what I mean? It's this offseason to me is going to be big, and I just hope that if Hughes does take another swing, I hope it's a player that's the same age demographic as the guys we're looking at, but a bigger name. How good would it be for Montreal to get a legit 80 to 100 point forward? Like that's a difference maker to this roster, a huge difference maker, because they already got a lot of good pieces there, like a lot of good pieces.
Yeah. So to get this player that we're talking about, this 80 to 100 point player, like, because this is what I want to see too, man. Like, you look at the players they already got up front now, and you insert a player like that in, you get a healthy Kirby Dach. Whoever they take at the 2024 draft, they're probably going to take another forward. I mean, what's it going to take to get that player? First off, Gary, on Gary's no trade list right now, besides Michael Pezzetta, obviously, who's got a 31 team no trade clause. I've already heard that. It's factual. Who else? Who else is on Gary's don't touch clause? Like, who's not movable?
There's guys.
That's tough.
There's guys I don't want to move, and I go to me, Caden Gooley is probably the most untouchable defenseman we have, because he brings every element, and we don't have another guy like that. We don't have another solid. I think Caden Gooley is going to be a top pairing defenseman who defends like a number one defenseman. I don't know, he's not going to have the offense of like a number one stud defenseman, but he'll defend. Like a Shea Weber when he hits his prime. Like, he'll shut guys down in front. He's got the size. He plays a mean enough game. I think that he's going to be a guy that in the playoffs again, and that's what it's all about. he's the kind of guy you're going to need, and we don't necessarily have another guy like that in our system. So I think he's untouchable for me. And I also think that Arbor Jackeye, and I know with all the talent we have there, but again, in the playoffs, and when it matters, Arbor Jackeye can do, he can skate well enough, he can move the puck well enough, but he also can shut you down in front of the net. He can also play that rough, mean defensive game, and he's going to get better at that as he gets a bit older and as he continues to grow. So you're going to need that. Like look at Montreal when they went on the run. Yes, Carey Price played a big role in that, but you need guys to clear it in front of the net. But you also need guys who can skate and move the puck and transition the puck and clear it from the net. And those two guys, to me, tick that box. And I think that's, when you look at we're going to be competitive, Matheson and Savard are going to be gone. Like when we're competitive at hockey, definitely Savard is going to be gone by that time. And then maybe they keep Matheson. So to me, Gooley and Jackeye would be on the untouchable list on the back end. And I say one of, Melu or Hudson, because I think, and I don't want to see either one of those guys move. I love both of them. But I think to make the move that I want to see made, like to get the offensive talent that I want to see coming on the front end, I think one of those guys is probably going to be a part of the package. And I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I'm just saying that I do want that move to happen. And I don't think a pick is going to do it. I don't think, because you're going to be moving these guys to a team that's contending, because they're going to have that talent there. Maybe they're going to have a surplus of that talent, but they're going to want something to kind of push them over the edge, and that's where those guys are going to come in. And I think that one of those guys are probably going to have to go. So as well, I'd like to add an untouchable to both of those guys. But I think that one of those guys probably will move. On the front end, Nick Suzuki to me is untouchable. Cole Caulfield's untouchable. Yuri Slafkovsky's untouchable. Outside of that, nobody.
Good choices, man. Good choices.
What would you add?
Add to that list? Probably.
Or take off the list?
Probably nobody. Probably nobody added to the list. I like everything you said about Caden Gooley, and you're right, man. There's nobody like him right now. Like, this guy is very young, already taking on, top minutes up against teams, shutting down top lines right now as a kid.
Yeah.
My only concern about Caden Gooley is injuries. Injuries, man, like concussions and
that's fair enough.
He's already had a couple. He ended the season with one. Like, I just want this guy to be healthy so bad, because I'm a huge Caden Gooley fan. Met him in Montreal. Nice kid, nice guy. I really want to see him be healthy, because in my heart right now, if a team phoned with this 80 to 100 point guy, and they wanted Caden Gooley, I'd pull the trigger, because I'd pull the trigger because I feel like you can bring in more of a shutdown role defenseman easier than bringing in an offensive stud defenseman, like, in a sense. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
It does make good sense. It does make really good sense. But
like, at the same time, it would be tough. It would be tough to move him. Well, to me, I don't want to see him get moved. But like you said earlier, man, right at the very beginning, you said in order to get a guy like that, like, this is the huge misconception amongst Montreal fans now. Like, everybody thinks that you're going to give a bag of Skittles, Jordan Harris, and a Ouija board, and you're going to get back like Bedard. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's not going to be that easy. It's never going to be that easy. Even Justin Barron, everybody's, I see him involved in a lot of trade rumors. There's a reason why people want to see these guys gone, and it's because A, they haven't seen anything special yet, or they kind of already have it in their head. Like Jordan Harris, for example. Like, everybody's kind of got this, it's in their head what kind of defenseman he's going to be, and you see it as replaceable. And I mean, that makes sense. I like Jordan Harris, but because of that, other teams see that too.
Absolutely. And I don't know that, I don't know that I see Jordan Harris as replaceable on most rosters, but the type player he is not an easy type player to get. It's just we happen to be fortunate enough to have more than one of them.
True.
You know what I mean? But that being said, his value is not as high as a Lane Hudson. It's not as high as a Logan Melu. the potential is not there like it is with those guys. Like, he's a different tier of prospect. You know, if you were going to tier off our prospects in Montreal, he would be lower on that tier than the guys I mentioned earlier. And what you said about Kagan Guhle was right. Like, you can get a guy that defends tough. Like, I mean, David Savard just defends tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I find, like, the difference with a David Savard or Joel Edmondson, or Ben Sherratt, is that Guhle he skates better than those guys, and he transitions the puck better than those guys. He's not going to fill the net with goals, although, he does put up his share of points, but he does have that transition element. So that, like, say with Joel Edmondson right now in Toronto, if you put Joel Edmondson on with a guy like Austin Matthews, he defends better, but he doesn't add to your transition. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
That's how those guys generate offense. You need to go from defense to offense quickly and get the puck up to those guys, and he doesn't do that overly well, even though he defends really, really well. But a guy like Kagan Guhle can do both of those things. He's not going to score the goals himself, but he helps you transition the puck out of your zone so well and get back on offense so well. So, like, to me, I love him. I don't think the type of hockey he plays is overly replaceable. But your point about injury is super valid. And, I mean, at the end of the day, you got a guy like Adam Instrom there, too, who I think does and will probably play that type of a game. And you got a guy like David Reinbacher, who I forgot to mention earlier, who, could, for me, conceivably, yes, replace the type of game that Kagan Guhle plays. Again, big, strong, shutdown defenseman who can also skate and transition the puck, but maybe won't fill the net. So, maybe, again, it's a guy I wouldn't want to see move. But if that's the price, if that's the cost of doing business to get the guy we need, then I think you're right. We could find a way to replace him.
Especially since we're so strong at the back end. Like,
absolutely.
It'd be different. Like, you take a couple of these guys out of the equation, and no, man, absolutely, you can't do it. But Lane Hudson, man, would be a tough one to trade to, based off of what I've seen just from his 2 games in the NHL alone.
Yeah, you're right.
Man, talk about wizardry from this young kid, like picking up points in each game. Like,
and when you look at a guy like,
it's crazy.
Look at a guy like Hughes in Vancouver and the impact he has on the ice. Similar type of makeup. I'm not saying they're exactly the same type of player. They use different styles to generate, but shifty offense generating defensemen who are small but still can make an impact. Like, if you have any question or doubt whether a player that stature can make an impact in the NHL or in the playoffs, you look at the Vancouver Canucks and look how hell-bent they are at trying to shut him down and play him physical. That's not because he's not contributing. It's not because he's not a factor. It's because they know what he can bring. And you look at a guy like Adam Fox in New York, same type of guy. Obviously, Cale Makar is on a different stratosphere, I think, because he's got that good. And he's got size in him. He's the speed that he can generate. But again, that offensive defenseman who can kind of act as a fourth forward and the impact that can have. So you're right about Lane Hudson. With all the hype that's been around Lane Hudson forever, it's a lot like when Cole Caulfield came in. Like, if someone had said to you, would you trade Cole Caulfield? 92% of Habs fans would have said, no, I don't care what the offer is unless it's, McDavid. Yeah. I'm not moving Cole Caulfield because the potential's so high. And I think Hughes is around the same way. Or not Hughes, sorry. Hudson is around the same way. And then
he's going to be a big point producer, man. I can see it. Yeah, like, he's going to get burned. He's going to get burned sometimes. He's going to have to learn a lot on his own end of the rink. But I don't care what anyone says. That guy is going to be putting up big points, and he's going to be the most exciting defenseman in Montreal since PK Subban, which is that's pretty high praise, man. Subban was electrifying.
Absolutely, man. And well, you heard the Bell Center, man, when he was there for those last 2 games. Like, when he had the puck in the offensive zone, it got loud. Like, it got noticeably loud, even over the television.
Yeah.
A buzz in the building from this one kid.
Yeah. When he got his first point, and they dropped the puck off to him, and he just like did these shimmy shakes at the blue line, and just it was unbelievable, because all year long I was reading, like Leafs fans saying on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, they were saying he's not going to be able to do that kind of shit in the NHL, and here he is, like his last 2 games he was out there, and he was doing it He did it against Patrick Kane in the last game. Like, you know what I mean? He was pulling it off, man. It was wicked.
Yeah, so it does translate. And really, when you look at, say, if you look at the guys who've been there and done that, it should translate, because they're not playing physical game. And I know we talked about Lane Hutson a little bit, and after, like, a lot of people were really high on, like, how he defended and stuff like that. And I thought he had a little bit of trouble on the cycle. Not that it would detract me from keeping him up in the lineup, don't get me wrong. But I just found he was trying to do things on the cycle that he would do in the NCAA, poking the puck around guys with your stick and kind of, defending without making contact. Because when you're, 40 pounds, 50 pounds lighter than the guy you're going up against, that's how you have to kind of learn to do things. I thought some of those strategies maybe wouldn't be effective long term. But I also think that he's a smart kid and he'll figure that out and he'll find ways around it. So, like, I'm super excited about Lane Hutson, and I think that he's going to be... Yeah, he's going to be an impact player for us moving forward. I'd be shocked to see him move. But I'd be shocked to see Logan Mailloux move too. So
yeah,
and that's what I'm saying.
Do you know what this does though? Like, do you know what this is doing to Kent Hughes? Every morning, Kent Hughes is waking up. He's grabbing a bowl. He's filling it with Tylenol. He's filling it with milk, and he's eating Tylenol cereal, man, every morning because he's got a massive headache right now. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, it's good to have this surplus of defensemen, but when you're looking at the guys that are coming into training camp and pushing for 6 spots next season, that's a headache. Like,
100%.
Look at the season Mailloux just had. Right? Mailloux just had a wicked season in the American Hockey League. Like, one of the best offensive defensemen in the league as a rookie. Now Lane Hutson's coming along. He's looking good. Everybody kind of wants to see Reinbacher. Yeah, he's probably going to be forced to play a year in the American Hockey League. Even if he is good, he's probably going to be forced to form his game a little better just because there's not enough room for him. Now, I don't know if that's fair, but that's just how it is. But, like, what do you do with all these guys? Justin Barron's still kicking around. Adam Engstrom is poking his head up from a garbage can at the Bell Center once in a while now. Like, it's going to be crazy, man. I don't even know what to say. Like, this training camp is going to be the most... It's going to be more interesting than last year's seasons. And I thought last training camp was going to be crazy, but this one's going to be even more nuts.
Absolutely. I mean, with regard to Dave Reinbacher, like, no one ever suffered from playing an extra year in the AHL. You know what I mean? People suffered from coming up too early, but no one was ever like, what really screwed his career path was that extra 6 months he played in the AHL. Like, that's not going to be an issue. The thing, too, with those guys is, like, some of these guys, and I'm not sure of everyone's status for this upcoming year, but, like, you got guys who were, young and really kind of, shiny and new. And so as a result of that, were waiver exempt, who in the next year or 2 years are not going to be waiver exempt. We ran into that with, like, Jesse Ulonen this year didn't get sent down because he had no waiver exemption. I don't know what Barron's status is and Harris's status is, and a couple more of those guys, even Arbor Jackie's status is. But eventually, if it's not this season, it'll be the next. They'll no longer be waiver exempt, and then you're looking at, well, I can't bring up Reinbacher, and I can't bring up this one because I can't afford to send these guys down and lose them for nothing. So I think this offseason, like you said, even before the training camp, which is going to be super exciting, there's got to be some answers before training camp. I don't think Ken Hughes wants to get himself into another 3-goalie rotation situation where everyone in the league knows you need to make a trade, and so they're not giving you what you want. I think he's going to want to pull the trigger relatively early on somebody to free up some space, whether it be one of the guys we've talked about, or whether it be one of the veterans that we kind of really haven't spoken about as much, but, like, whether it be a Savard or a Madison trade. I think that at some point, sooner rather than later, he wants to kind of at least move one of these assets to clarify things a little bit. Now, knowing Ken Hughes, he's not going to rush it, and he's not going to pull the trigger unless he thinks he's getting the deal that he wants. But I think he's going to look hard for that deal. I think he's looking right now.
Okay, so before the draft, do you think there's going to be a defenseman moved?
I do. I think whatever move, whatever draft, either before or at the draft, I think that in a package with, probably one of the alternate picks, hopefully, and not the 5th or 6th or wherever it ends up being overall pick, I think there'll be a defenseman moved at or just before the draft in a Doc-like move, but hopefully a bigger move.
Okay. So we got one foot in the shithouse. Now let's put the other foot in the shithouse. Which players are going to be? You could pick one. I'm going to pick one. You're going to pick one. There's no bits. There's no beer. I don't even have any beer left, Gary. You got them all, okay?
I think I do have all the beer. I think Mike Matheson's going to move at trade deadline or at the draft or before draft.
Yeah,
I do. I think he's going to be the guy. I think he's the easiest one to move, and I think you'll get the most for him, even more than those young guys probably, because he just came off a career year. You know, he defends well. He can play on. He's good for a rebuilding team if you're, you know, a Buffalo or you're a whatever. And if you're a contender and you want a guy to generate more off your back end right now, he can do that too. So I think that every franchise in the NHL will be, you know, on your buyer's list, which will drive the price up even higher. And I think him and a piece like, you know, a late first round pick or whatever the case might be, maybe one of our young offensive, you know, which are B-list prospects, or B-list prospects, and a pick, like that's a hefty package that could get you a return. So I think Mike Matheson, if not Mike Matheson, I'll let you go. I won't add a choice B.
Okay, so this is gonna be tough. Like, I'm gonna go. Like, if I was feeling ballsy, like I'd go right ahead and say Caden Gooley. I'd say this blockbuster's gonna happen. But
you don't have the stones.
I don't. Not right now. No. I'm sitting there on the bench like Mitch Marner firing my gloves at the floor. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pick a defenseman that we haven't even talked about yet. Jaden Struble. I'm gonna say I don't know why, but I feel like he's matured a little bit. Like, he's older than some of the other defensemen. He played in the NCAA. He's big. Mm-hmm. He showed a lot during this season. He kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think he was even in anybody's plans until he showed up, and all of a sudden he played so good that you couldn't even move him all of a sudden. You know what I mean? You couldn't send him down. He was playing too good.
Absolutely.
And I think it threw a wrench into everything. And I think he played himself. I think he played well enough to generate quite a bit of trade value. And I think he's going to be a guy. Like, I'm not saying that that's going to be the blockbuster deal. No,
I know what you mean.
But I think that's a name that could potentially get moved, kind of similar to Romanov in a sense. Like, maybe, you know what I mean? Like a decent return.
Well, you look at what we got for Romanov. If it's Struble goes out the door plus what? Even Struble plus a late first, and you get a return that's close to Kirby Dach.
Yeah,
I mean that's good.
That's a win.
That's good asset management, 100%. Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
for
not
a team like I like Struble's game too. Like, as another
100%.
team around the NHL, it's a young, gnarly, big dude, man, to put on the blue line right away. I'd want him.
100%. When he played his second game in the NHL, his trade value already started to go up.
Yeah,
you know, the way he was playing in the AHL would have put him on people's radar, but it's still always a question, you know, will it translate? You know, is he fast enough? Which shouldn't have been a doubt because he skates beautifully. But, you know, is he big enough? Is he strong enough? Is his game, you know, can he think the game fast enough? Because that's the biggest change, is just the speed it comes at you. And he answered every question, you know, and he did it for the remainder of the season as well. So, you know, his trade value, while it's not where, like I said, it's not a home run, let's bring in an 80-goal scorer. It is still very good. He's a young defenseman who can play the game, you know, any way you want to. And he's big and strong and generates a little bit of offense too. So I think you're right. Like, you know, that could be a good piece to move, as long as you qualify it with, like, he's not the piece that gets you the big piece back.
no,
And maybe that's not the move they make this summer. Maybe that's the next summer. You know,
could be.
You know, easily enough, could be next summer. Or, knowing the Montreal Canadiens, maybe it never happens. We've been waiting for a deal like that for about 2 decades now.
So I wanted to save the biggest news right for the very end too. Pez cut his hair.
Are we at the end already? I saw.
No,
Pez
maybe
cut
not.
his hair.
But I just wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it now, Gary.
He did it for all the right reasons, man.
He did.
a beauty.
He did. He is, yeah, man.
He cut his hair at the end of last season, too, didn't he?
He did, yeah, for the same reason, man.
Yeah, that's pretty
He's a
cool.
good guy.
He is a good guy.
He is.
Did you get to see Pez when you were in Montreal?
No, like I seen him at practice, but we didn't get to meet him or anything like that.
I saw the video you seeing him at practice.
Yeah, I got
slightly erratic.
It was, yeah. It was. That was a rated R video.
What was your highlight of your Montreal trip? It might be hard to pick.
Man, like going to the games was a cool experience. Like being outside the Bell Center was cool. Seeing all the statues, the legends, and then going inside for the first time and like just taking it all in. Like we went in fairly early, like because it was their first time there. We didn't really know what to expect, right? But like when we went and sat down and I was just looking around and I heard Madame Bibo playing the organ. It was, oh man. It was wicked, man. Yeah. It was so cool. And I seen her too. I don't know if I told you that, but like she walked right past us, man.
Really, eh?
Yeah, right outside the Bell Center. But I mean, aside from being in the building, probably just sticking around after practice and meeting some of the players coming out was pretty badass. Like Yoel Armia came out on foot. Actually, no, it was Mario Armia. Actually, came out on foot, and it was cool, man. Like he was just interacting with everyone and seeing some of the players and how they act and I mean, Mountain Ball comes to mind. Like he was leaving, and when he noticed everyone, like he jammed on his brakes. Like it was a pretty big, like he didn't screech to ours, but like he locked her up, man, and like backed up, and then came along and got out of his vehicle and met everybody that was there. Like just took time to speak to everybody individually. Like it was cool.
That is really cool, man.
Yeah.
This thing too about like wicked. This team is. They do seem like, and I'm sure they're not all, I'm sure there's an asshole among them, a hidden gem, but they do seem like, for the most part, just really nice, genuine people, and not every team has that either. Like, there's some teams where, there's assholes there. There are assholes on the ice, there are assholes in the media,
Yeah.
But the Habs, like, they do seem to have a really nice group of, guys, all-around guys, which makes them a lot easier to root for.
Oh yeah, it's awesome, man.
That was great.
It is wicked. Like the guy that did the tour of the Bell Center too. We went up in the elevator with him, going up to the top floor to see like where the press and stuff, or not the press. Where the press watch the games, like up over everything. We're in the elevator with him. And he was talking about Ryan Reeves fighting Mike Opposetta the night before, and then he just randomly said like, "Man, we missed Derby that game," and he was talking about like just. How wicked of a guy Jack Eye is, like even just meeting him in the Bell Center because he works there and like just running into him every day. Like he was talking about how nice of a kid he is, and he seemed like he was really on board with the new team, like how they're structured and how yeah.
And you know what? Like at the end of the day, like anyone can be nice in the media, The camera's on you for a couple seconds. You can say the right words and stuff like that. But when you talk to those people that are around people every day, like how you treat those people is a better reflection of, what your actual character is, So that's the first time I hadn't heard that story from you before. So like that's pretty cool, man. That seems like that's genuine,
Yeah. We went up into the Habs alumni room.
Yeah.
And walked in, and he said the same thing about. He said something similar about Guy Lafleur too. He says, everybody misses Guy Lafleur, but he said Guy Lafleur would be at the Bell Center. Like if Montreal was playing 7, he'd be at the Bell Center like 4:00 by himself, just walking around, talking to fans. Always had time to talk to everybody, and at this point, like he's older. He was saying, like like he already played his career. Like he went through all this stuff, but he still had time for everybody, man. Like
that's awesome, too.
Yeah, it's wicked, man. Wicked stuff.
That's pretty cool.
I can't wait to go back.
I'm going back with you next time. Did you get recognized?
I got recognized at the tour. That was the only time I wore. Merch while I was up there. I just went to that tour and I said, fuck it, I'll throw on a Black Eye from Jack Eye hoodie. And one of the guys that was doing the tour, I think there was like 20 of us maybe.
Yeah.
Just randomly came up and he's like, "Are you really him?" I was like, "Yeah." So I got a picture taken with a guy. He's a really nice guy. He's from Labrador, I think he said he was.
Nice.
And he traveled there and he was going to see the Habs in Ottawa and in Ottawa too a couple of games later.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You're a big deal.
Big deal, man.
Yeah.
Becoming a big deal. I'm like Colonel Sanders now.
You need to grow a mustache. You look deadly with a mustache.
Man. You know what's sad though?
What's that?
Bob Cole. And I just wanted to say, like, being from Newfoundland, growing up watching Hockey Night in Canada ever since I was in diapers, and you know, seeing a guy like Bob Cole pass it sucked. Like, jeez, man. Like, he lived a long life. He's seen stuff that man's seen with his eyes and COD.
Legendary.
Incredible. Like, yeah, it is, man. And I don't know, like, every time it's always been like that too. Like, every time, you know, I think about watching games as a kid, his voice is always there in my head. Like, it's sad that he passed, man.
It is. I think you tweeted the other day, you know, if nostalgia had a sound, it'd be Bob Cole's voice. I might have misquoted there, but it was one of the most heartfelt things I've ever heard you say or utter or tweet. It was very impressive. And you're right, man. It's like, it's the sound of your childhood. And then, you know, being from Newfoundland too, it was a source of pride for myself anyways. I can't speak for you, but to be from, you know, that he was from, you know, the voice of Hockey Night in Canada for the entire country, you know, was from your home province and you know, the whole world, you know. Now, he didn't have a Bonavest accent, that's for sure, but he did have that Newfoundland twang and depth to him, and you know, it was a source of pride for me, anyways, and like I said, a big part of my childhood, listening to his voice and the way he brought games to life, man. Like, man, like, you could listen to Bob Cole on the radio and see the game better than you can watch it on TV now with some of the announcers that are out there. And that's not a dig at anyone. It's just like, that's how good he was at bringing the game to life, bringing the emotion of it, at the right moments and hitting all the right keys, man. So it was, Bob Cole's going to be missed for sure.
Yeah, a voice that cannot be replicated. Like, you know,
voice of a generation.
Those are, 100%.
Absolutely. So, since we are winding down, and I guess on a more positive note, I'm going to make the beer bet of the week. And I'm really hoping that, based on my history to date with these beer bets, that this is going to be the nail in the coffin for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'm going to bet you a half case of Coors Light that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to lose Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs against the Boston Bruins and be eliminated once again in the first round, to the glory of the entire country, except for the people in Ontario.
Tia, and you know what? You're going to win this one. I'm going to buy a dozen, and you're going to drink half, and I'm going to drink half. That's what's going to happen.
That sounds awesome.
That's the way we're doing it.
Boom. All right, everybody. From Hockey Junkie and GK.
We'll see you next time.